Hello and welcome to an NFC Championship game live stream of the John Keim Report. Do me a favor, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube later, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I'm going to have a story up on Thursday, I believe, about Jaden Daniels. A lot of stuff from behind the scenes about this season. So look forward to having you read that. That is Thursday, and then we'll have a lot of stuff throughout the week. And there's more and more stuff on here, Bram. And as you can see, I'm joined by the voice of the Commanders, Bram Weinstein. I'm talking to Ross Tucker, Lewis Riddick, and have those guys up here this week just to get you ready for the championship game on Sunday. How about that, Bram? Championship game on Sunday. What do you think?
It's pretty incredible. We've talked, throughout the year that I was relatively optimistic, that they could be a playoff team just because of the pathway to it and be a second place team in the division. I never envisioned 12. I never envisioned them coming together like this. I never envisioned being on a ride like this. And, not only is just NFC Championship game, but it's the biggest game in the history of the rivalry between Philadelphia and Washington. It's really really remarkable.
That's the thing that I think is going to be interesting, right? And it's funny because, and I had Jay Gruden on talking about playing up in Philly and what that's like. And, his point too is they just came from playing in Detroit. Like, there is no way that what you're going to encounter in Philly is more intense than what you got in Detroit. Now, the crowd can be different, but the playing in a dome makes it unbelievably difficult. So this team is so battle tested. They went on the road to beat Dallas, Tampa, and obviously Dallas the regular season, but Dallas, Tampa, and then Detroit. Like, they are so battle tested that I think, you go into this one, you have to feel pretty darn good.
I think the first sign of it was Cincinnati Monday night, honestly. And that was really the first sign of, and I always go back to that one when people ask me, when did you know that things could be really different this year? And that was really the first sign of it, because that was a chalked up loss by literally everybody. Washington was 1-1. They came off that weird game where they didn't score a touchdown. It's Monday Night Football. It's Burrow. T. Higgins is back. Didn't play in the first two games. They're 0-2. They're going to win, right? They're going to win. And Jaden completes 90% of his passes, throws that ridiculous pass to McLaurin that's caught at the end. And it really kind of started the ball rolling. I think for us that this could be a very different situation. I'm still surprised that we've made it this far, and I find the dismissive nature of everybody else about this team. I just think, in general, nothing seems to move the needle. No matter what anybody sees with them, they don't seem to change their opinion about them outside of this area, which I guess is good for this team, because I get it. This is an unusual story. It's the greatest turnaround in the history of the NFL. It's got a rookie quarterback. It's got a new coach, got 30 new players. So I get it. This would be extremely unusual. So I understand that part of it. But if you're not paying attention to what they're actually doing, there's nothing lucky. There's no accident about all of this. So I put nothing past them again this weekend, considering they beat them a few weeks ago and had their, the one game where they made a million mistakes and they beat them anyway. I don't know what we're going to get this weekend. We can probably go through it, but I don't think it would be, I honestly don't even think it would be an upset at this point, the way that they've played and the way that they've stood up on the road throughout the entire season.
I would not, I would not consider an upset based on what we've seen, not just what we've seen, Bram, but what about this group. And this is where I go back to that. And I talked about this post game, but the roster construction was so, especially in hindsight, and I talked to a player as I was leaving the locker room the other day, is they were really, really smart about how they did this. And that's you go and get leaders like Ertz and Wagner and, I put Eckler, but I don't think he's the same. I think the other two, they're all leaders by example, but I think the other two are a little bit more stronger, especially Wagner. But it's you get veterans who can play, but then you pair them with young players. But these young guys are Jaden Daniels, as mature as they come. 55 college starts. Mike Samerstill, extremely mature player. And, when they drafted him, I kind of likened him to a Terry McLaurin type on defense, where you're coming into the league. Like when McLaurin came in the league, it felt like he was 30 years old when you were talking to him, just in terms of his approach and how he handled things. And I felt the same way with Sanders still. So you get these vets like that and you mix them with these guys, and they just creates a really good situation where you're not flustered by these moments. And it's funny because I will say this. So you go back to the Cincinnati game, and I agree with like, that was when it's like, but so in Cincinnati and Detroit, I stayed in Cincinnati. I had there's someone I went to high school with, to stay with her and her husband, and they're big Bengals fans. And there was like, it was assumed that the Bengals would win, because it's Joe Burrow, it's Monday night, it's Washington. And in Detroit, I stay with my cousins because they live in, a half hour from the city. And I was out at his country club the night before. All these people are like, oh yeah, what's the lines? Like, well, it's their year. It's your year. It's Washington. And here we are. So when I stay with people, they're 2-0. I'm not staying with anybody in Philly, but I like their chances this weekend. For what you say, it would not be an upset to me. They scored. I know Jalen Hurts didn't play in the second, or the last 3 quarters of that game, whatever. They gave up 36 to this offense. That doesn't guarantee anything this time. But the point is, this offense moved it on. This offense has to scare the hell out of the Eagles. And then, Bram, you watch Jalen Hurts limping off into the locker room after that game the other night. What's he, not is he going to play, but what level of effectiveness as a runner will he be?
Yeah, I think the 2 things that really, there's 3 things that really stand out to me as key things to really watch for this weekend. And one is Hurts. They're never going to say all week how hurt he is. They're going to list him on the injury report. We'll see how much he practices. I don't know how much that really matters. But I think we're going to find out in the game. Does he have lateral movement? Will he run a zone read? Will they actually, call run plays for him? If he has to scramble or get out of the pocket, can he move quickly? And I think we're going to find out very early. And I think that Joe Witt and Dan Quinn are going to force the issue to find out very early about his health. And I think it's a large determinant of how this team is going to play defense against them. When Hurts went out, and then we got to the second half when this happened, but they made adjustments on Barkley and things changed on the run game for Philadelphia that helped enable a comeback, for them to have the opportunity of it. There was a lot of reasons why they came back, but that started it. Like typically when Philadelphia gets a lead, like the field just gets tilted on you in the second half with Barkley and that rush offense, and it just becomes overwhelming. This was the one time in 4 months that it kind of turned the other way. I think Witt and Quinn have to just look at this and go, we need to find out early what Hurts is capable of. And if it looks like that he's marginalized, can't move laterally, they do not want to call run plays for him. He's not going to move the pocket. Well, then I think you think about the run game very, very differently and force it in his hands and see how it goes.
Yeah, and I think, in that second game too, here's one thing too. John Allen did not play in that second game, and he makes a big difference. I know he's called a lot of grief for whatever, and he's not where he was at a couple of years ago. He's still a good defensive tackle in the NFL. And I would say this, I like Johnny Newton down the road. I don't think he's as good a run stopper as these guys, as him and Payne. So I think he's going to be a guy who down the road will be a very good pass rusher for first. And I think with Payne and Allen, you want to stop the run. Having him, and I think that Newton does a good job when he's playing over the center with those 2 on the field with him as well. So I think and he creates a one-on-one for him. So I think they can go to that package with Payne, Allen, Newton on there, with whether it's Holmes or Jean-Baptiste or Armstrong, whatever. The other thing, so a couple times in that second game, they did tweak some stuff with the linebackers, some last second shifts by the linebackers after motion by the Eagles. So after they were really set, and then the ends, I felt like Fowler got a field pretty well too, and that helped on some plays. The guy that concerns me obviously would be Jalen Carter on the other side of the ball, and what's going to happen with guard. And I went back, I don't know if you had a chance to go back and watch Trent Scott. I felt like he did a nice job. I felt in pass protection, he works to get his hands inside, did a fine job there. I think as a puller, just not the same as Cosme. Getting to the second level, fell down a few times. So I think that's just getting used to the footwork in there. And to do that, I think we'll see what he does in the second game at that position, if he's the one who plays there. But Carter's a guy that concerns me because he's the guy that can wreck a game.
Yeah, of course. I think underrated too is Milton Williams. I think he's had a very good year for them. And so like that, I don't want to short shrift them. Their defense is outstanding. They're well coordinated. They're very good. Carter is one of the best players in the NFL, period. He had 2 sacks a week ago. He's got 8 pressures already in 2 games. Like he's dominating in the playoffs. I'm not surprised. He's an incredible interior defensive lineman. And that is one of the, the 2 of the 3 things that I think, to me, I'm going to be watching for the whole game is, 1, Jalen Hurts, 2, Jalen Carter. I'll get to the rest of our defense too, and the Marshawn Lattimore effect, which I think is a really big part of this game plan too. But to stay on Carter for a minute, I will be interested to see what they're going to do on the offensive line. Are they going to stick with Trent Scott?
Yep.
Do they activate Chris Paul and put him in there at right guard? Let's see how they handle this, because clearly they're going to have to double team Carter. Clearly they're weakened. Like, this is a bad loss, especially this week. It's a really bad loss. If they were to get to the Super Bowl, and if it were the Chiefs or the Bills for that matter, but the Chiefs with Chris Jones, same problem. It's gonna be same problem.
Yeah, sure.
So they got to survive here the next couple of weeks. This is a really bad, tough loss. I feel terrible for Cosme. Of all people deserve to be there, it's him. So I feel terrible for him. But what they're going to do about it will be very interesting to see. I thought Trent Scott, all things considered, thrown in like that to do that, played pretty well. But, with no offense to the Lions defensive line, they're not Jalen Carter and Milton Williams, period. So I want to see how they try to handle that this week.
Me too. And that's going to be a scheme thing just because I'm watching them, like, how do you scheme around Jalen Carter when you have that matchup? I think it'd be very tough to put Chris Paul in there. I would not put him in there first playoff game. And I don't know that you want to put Dieter in there. I don't know if you have really a solid choice other than Scott. I don't know. So we'll see. But regardless who is in there, Bram, Carter gave Cosme trouble. But one of the things that Cosme does very well is he can move. He's an athletic guard, and he can move in space, and you can get your guard tackle, counter pulls, etc. You can get the screens out there with him, get him out in space, and that's a major thing to take away from this offense. And I'm like you, you feel bad for guys like that. They put up with he had to endure so much here, and then you finally get to this point, and now you're out, and it's just like
I mean,
the game.
The difficult thing with Philadelphia really is they win with 4 a lot. Nolan Smith is underrated. He's become a very good, wily edge rusher. Josh Sweat is he's their Dorrance Armstrong. Like, he's not going to lead the lead in sacks, but he makes a lot of nice plays for them. And the interior defensive line is outstanding, and especially with Carter. And they have, I think this is why their record is what it is. Their ranking is what it is, that they largely don't have to commit a lot of blitzes. They don't have to do that if they don't want to. They win a lot with 4. So this is it for the Washington offense. What are they going to do about the interior offensive line? Can they protect well enough that it forces Philadelphia to bring extra people, which they don't typically need to do in general? And then how do they get out of that? And listen, I trust Cliff and I trust number 5 to figure this stuff out, but this all adds up to me in general. Hurts' injury, interior O-line messed up. I kind of just feel like, I know it's early in the week, points are going to be at a premium. Like, I actually don't feel like this is a very high scoring game. First 1 to 20 may win. Team that makes fewest mistakes may win. I think this is going to be a very low scoring game, because if Hurts can't run, can't move, and Washington can control Barkley enough that he doesn't bust off these massive runs, then I don't see the Eagles scoring a ton of points unless there's like a coverage breakdown. And then for Washington, for all the reasons we just talked about, I think it's going to be hard pressed for them to have big explosive plays. So it's going to take methodical drives, and it's probably a shortened game, and they're going to need to play clean football again. No turnovers, 1 punt in 2 games. That's a path to victory. They got to keep that stuff up, because you can't give this team, Philadelphia, any extra possessions, especially with that run game, short fields, all that stuff. I just feel like this is a low scoring-ish game, personally.
Possibly. And there's a couple of things here. A couple of people have asked about Marshawn Lattimore, Cody, and then Matt, just like what their plans are for him. We don't know. First of all, they're not going to tell us if they're going to have him travel. Last game, he was on his side. And when he came back in against Tampa, he stayed on his side. So I could see him just doing that, because I think they feel pretty good with Samerstill against whomever. Now, it's not as good a matchup with him against A.J. Brown, but because, again, he competes and he's smart, he can handle the assignment. But with Lattimore, when he faced him last time, he ended up having the hamstring issue. And I'm just curious to see what the impact for Lattimore is on now playing a third straight game, and just what the impact on his personal game is. Because again, the first game didn't look sharp at all, but it looked like a guy who had not played in a while, and then last week wasn't tested. I mean, that's good for him. So where is he at? Because he had a tough game at times against Brown the first time, and the one pass interference we can say that was bad call. They called it, whatever. But there were a couple plays he gave up. Bram, to me, that's a big one too, because you bring up the big plays. That's one who can take that away. So,
I think he's a big part of this. I saw the best version of him since they traded for him against Detroit. Not only did he not get tested very much, but he was extremely physical. You see the competitive nature, and you see that part I think that they really love about him is he'll come up and hit people. He'll come up and tackle. They suddenly have a big time physical secondary, like kind of overnight now with his addition. Chin, who leads the team in tackles here through 2 playoff games, Sandra still, who's a very physical player, even physical on special teams, and Martin, they suddenly have a back end that I think is what they're looking for physically wise. Luvu was back, had a big game. Wagner's been steady the whole time. Thought Armstrong had a nice game against Detroit. That's a really good offensive line that they faced. Like, they gave up some points, some big plays. No kidding. Everybody did. That's a historically good offense. They're going to give up some big plays here too, obviously, because this team can do that. But when Dan Quinn and Joe Witt talked about, you're going to like the way we get down, forget the ball is life stuff for a minute, because they finally had that. Like, the physicality, the running to the ball, you're going to get hit on every single play. That's becoming more and more evident. They're rounding into form at just the right time. Allen coming back is huge. Marshawn getting his sea legs under him. Third, fourth game in this defense. You could see him feeling it again. And all of that coming up at one time, especially this week, where I know Jaden's been unbelievable this year. You cannot ask them to score 30 points this week. It is very unlikely that it is going to happen. The defense is going to have to win the game for them, in my opinion. Like, this is the game where the defense steps up and wins it for them.
I think the turnovers have been key, because it was always going to be hard for them to slow that Detroit offense. But man, listen, the Dorrance Armstrong strip sack may have been the biggest play in the game.
Yes.
Because if you let them get a touchdown there, it's like you're coming out of a 14-3 hole on the road against the Lions. That's tough. So I think, but here's the other part to the secondary, Bram, and I think that's a great point. And it's funny because with the physical part, you started to see it slowly gain some momentum during the year. And there was Cincinnati game was the first game where I felt like they had some of what we are now seeing more of. But the other aspect of that too, that I think is as important as the physical play, I think it's a smart secondary. And I don't think we've seen one like this in a while. Like Sam still very smart. Quan Martin, very smart, coming from Illinois, where they're moving him around a lot. Lattimore is a very smart corner. Chin, smart player. And so I think that helps as well, that you're going to give up plays, but you're not going, I don't think you're going to have the coverage busts that you had in the past. So I think it's a good physical, smart secondary. And, I think that's a bonus for them, because then you can do things with that. And one of the things that they've been doing lately is taking away, making the quarterback maybe a little uncertain on their first read. And that's you can start to get into some turnovers when you do that. And so I think be curious to see how Hurts handles that. I mean, Hurts is going to hold the ball a long time if you do that and give yourself a chance to get to him. But, that's something I think to watch as well with this group.
Yeah. I've been, getting ready for the game, and I'm inundated with stat packs. And I saw this one from last week that was really amazing. The Eagles had 3 60-yard touchdowns, right? Rare that happens. So they had 3 plays that averaged 60 yards per play. The 2 Barkley runs, the long Hurts run that were touchdowns. All the other plays combined, they averaged under 3 yards a play. So short of these explosive things, and obviously that can happen with them, specifically from Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, but more so in the run game these days, because they're not throwing the ball the way that they did before, which will go back to the relative health of Hurts. And can he extend a play if he has to throw the ball? We're going to find that out early in this game. That read to me a little bit it's very promising. Their offense isn't consistently operating like the Lions. The Lions that was crazy the other day. The two teams combined in the first half, the plays were at an average of 10 yards per play. Both teams, like that was ping pong track meet. They were hitting these big plays. It looked like a big play could happen at any given moment. With the Eagles, that's not the case. They're eating it a little bit. Their passing game is not clicking. A.J. Brown has very low numbers so far in the playoffs, like 3 catches, 24 yards. Like they're relying on that run game being dominant, and it is a superpower for sure. And Washington has not stopped it yet. Nobody has this year, but they haven't stopped it in the 2 games they've played them. But that said, with Washington's defense getting better, peaking, if they just don't give up these massive, gashing, huge plays, I think that there's a distinct possibility that we are in a low-scoring game. And because I just have, I love what the offense is doing. They're going to have to surprise me with scheming something up to beat this defense consistently, because I just don't love the matchup, frankly.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to get back to, too, we were talking about the defense, and we brought up John Allen. A couple of people pointed out, I agree with them. This was his best game. I think he's getting back into feeling really, really good. And it's just so valuable for this team to have that, because, again, it gives you options like putting him and Payne out there together are so much better against the run than it is when it's Payne and Newton. And, I think Newton can get there for sure. There's a lot of skills that I like about him, but he's still got to learn how to play the run at his level and size in the NFL consistently. But John Allen knows how to do that and taking on double teams. So I'll be curious to see how they do with that as well, Bram, against the run. So one of the things that was good against Bucky Irving, and I will say this, I felt like Detroit maybe could have gone to Jahmyr Gibbs a little bit more on the ground, but I 100%. Felt like this group has done a better job being more gap sound the last few weeks. And if you can just control the run game, if you don't have to you're not going to shut them down completely, but you just can't, like you said, you can't. The first game they played, it's not, Barkley was going, I think it was 3.5 yards per carry going in the fourth quarter. It was just 2 runs. They did a pretty good job against him to that point. And the second game, it was a couple big runs in the first half and then really good in the second half. So you just can't let them go crazy. And I think that's the big key. And force Jalen Hurts to beat you with his arm.
Yeah, listen, easier said than done. Saquon Barkley is a reasonable number away from having the most yards in NFL history, regular season, postseason combined. And the same thing with the Lions last week. I thought the defensive game plan was amazing. They still gave up 31 points and a bunch of explosive plays, because you're just not going to shut a team like that down. For me, going into the game a week ago, it was, I thought we were going to score 30 plus, just watching their defense over the last month. My only question going into it was, will it be enough? That's it. Correct. That was my only question. There was I had no thought whatsoever that Detroit's defense would have a shot to slow us down, but they score so fast that I just wanted to know, could we, and with the crowd and all that stuff, and momentum is a big deal in these games, would we score enough to win? As it turns out, the defensive game plan was amazing. They forced a number of turnovers. Nice play, Dorrance Armstrong. The game plan to confuse and force mistakes out of Goff worked, specifically on the Quan Martin interception. Then Detroit did a Detroit thing, a reckless, ridiculous down 10 call to have a wide receiver throw a pass, utterly ridiculous. That is right up their alley for doing things like that. And so all that combined to Washington took advantage, didn't hurt themselves, took advantage of the mistakes, and ended up winning. In this case, Philadelphia, they'll go for things, but they'll go for things like Washington does, 4th and 1, 4th and 2. They'll do a tush push. They don't, bold but not reckless. You may think you see Sirianni preening and all this stuff and that they're competent. Yeah, they are. But unlike Detroit, they don't do the crazy stuff in the same way that Washington doesn't do the crazy stuff when they go for these things. This is going to be on the margins. I really feel like this is an old time classic defensive showdown. And if someone gets to 21st, I think they win. Yeah.
I mean, that could be, and you're right. It's funny because and Sam still too had 2 really good picks as well, and the one in the end zone was terrific. I mean, that was terrific, and it's undercutting the ball and but playing the route and just really, really doing a good job. So I think, like I say, this is a smart team and smart secondary, and I think that'll make a difference. But having Jameson Williams throw the ball, as someone else said, like, he's not exactly the best decision maker, and you put him in a situation where it's like it was sometimes, like, I think Ben Johnson's a terrific play caller.
Yes.
Sometimes guys like that get way too cute with what you can do. You have Jahmyr Gibbs, Williams, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. You got Laporte. You don't have to be tricky. You can throw some eye candy, but you don't have to do that stuff. It becomes, okay, whatever. But he's not here, so whatever. But I do, I think the defense, if you can just play a smart game, I don't think they can win this game without creating a turnover or two. And,
of course.
So that
this comes back to Hurts. Like, what kind of mobility does he have? If he's going to be kind of stuck in the pocket, not moving around very much, well, you know where he's going. He becomes less Jalen Hurts and more Jared Goff.
Right.
And I think you have opportunities there. They got pressure on Goff. That's a really, really good offensive line in Detroit too. This Philadelphia line is the best in the business, in my opinion. I couldn't believe when I read this. All 5 of them got some vote for all pro. All 5 of them. Like, you ever heard anything like that? Where each position, like, they got at least 1 vote for all pro. 2 of them got all pro nods. And I think, Cam Jurgens, the center, probably should have got it too. And he didn't. This is a really good team. The other thing that's really just want to say this because this is what makes this even more exciting. Like, none of this has been easy for them. If they were to win this game, they will, at least to this point, played the highest possible seed they could on the road. Like, they got no break. They didn't get one of them to lose along the way. They'll have played the highest possible seed they could on the road. And it's very possible that they'll play the highest possible seed the entire run if they were to get to the Super Bowl and play the Chiefs. So this is what I love about it too. Like, they're going to answer literally every question. Every doubter is going to be, it's done if they win this one and actually get to the Super Bowl. They'll have beaten, by far, not close, the 2 best teams in the NFC on their home field in playoff games if they pull this off. So underestimate them at your own risk, because I've already seen what they've done to this point. And if they pull this one off, I don't even know how you would qualify anything other than they're just having one of the greatest seasons of all time.
Oh yeah, it's an amazing run, and it's funny, Bram, because like having a front row seat to this and being in that locker room and feeling it and feeling the confidence grow and never really wavering. Like, I put up a clip the other day on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, of Bobby Wagner in the summertime in training camp, and just like I asked him, like, what have you learned about this team? And he said that we have a chance to be special. Like, this is in August now. You can always say, like, okay, what else are you going to say? Like, guys say that. But you heard so many things back then that are playing out right now. Do you know what I'm saying? And so, like, and then you see the belief come through with these games, with each of those. Look at how they've been tested, not just these road games, but all those close games down the stretch. Like, you can't find a stronger team mentally than this one. You might not be the best team in the end. We'll see. I mean, I am done putting any sort of limitations on what this group can do.
Great.
And even last week going into it, like, I thought, you knew it was going to be really hard. I'm with you. Like, I thought they could score on that defense. I had Lions fans tell me, like, Alex Anzalone being back was the answer. I'm like, come on. Like, no, period, end of sentence. So I thought they would score.
Yeah.
But what they did what they did in terms of forcing the turnovers was tremendous. But I thought they could win. I didn't go into that thinking they were absolutely going to lose, because we've been around them too much. Like, there's something different with this group, and the number 5 is special. And so you have all that, it adds up to this. So they can, if anybody in Philadelphia is thinking this is going to be an easy game, then good luck, because this is going to be fun. And I think
kind of started in the middle of the season too. Like, goes back to Cincinnati. It didn't turn enough heads because I guess it was the first time it happened and people thought maybe this is a one-off or something. It happened before the Chicago game too, where their fan base just got real loud, almost like yelling out loud that they just wanted to believe that they made the right draft pick. And so they're like preemptively trying to say how Caleb is better than Jaden, and you'll see. And then, what happened. Of course, they're just running with excuses because it's a Hail Mary and there's a little bit of, luck and divine intervention that occurs with that. But largely, Jaden was the way better player in the game. He was injured in the game too. He was injured. Caleb's numbers at halftime were terrible. But anyway, the second Philly game happens. They have a +4 turnover margin, really +5 because there's a turnover on downs. And the excuses that came out that were allowed to just be kind of vocalized by everybody saying well, this is because Kenny Pickett played. Never mind you, he's a first-round pick from 3 years ago. You act like he's trash. Second, I don't remember Jalen Hurts playing defense ever, so I don't know what you guys are talking about. And but it's just been dismissive the whole way. The vibe from Tampa was very dismissive. And at least they had reason. They beat them badly earlier in the year. Detroit, they had blinders on, and it was really dismissive too. It was palpably dismissive. And I didn't know whether Washington would win or not, but I knew they were going to be in the game, and I knew it was going to be close, and I knew they were going to score 30 plus because I'd watched that defense and scouted that defense and went, Buffalo could have scored 60 on them a few weeks ago. The Niners could have scored 40 on them, missing half their team. I'm like,
correct.
We're going to score on these. I know that. It's just, will it be enough? But they were so dismissive. They had blinders on. And I think it's John, because this story, we're close to it. We're watching it. It's amazing. We're going to make a movie about this thing. You're going to write a book about it. It's going to be amazing. But everybody on the outside thinks it's some cute story that involves a rookie quarterback who's better than average and pretty good. And wow, that's really cool. But, in the end, they never win the big ones. They're not paying attention. This is not an accident. And you know what? Keep dismissing them because it seems to work. And they don't buy into it, and they don't mouth off, and they don't talk back. They just show you. It's really amazing.
It is. And it's funny because, again, being in Detroit, there were definitely some – listen, I will say this. That's a scarred fan base. So they know that there's always disaster looming around, but it certainly felt like they're like, this is the year. There's no doubt in my mind because my cousin, we spent the whole Sunday morning or whatever day they played talking about it. But having said that, I know that, but there was a feeling of this is a coronation of this group. And,
there wasn't a person wearing blue in that building that thought they were going to lose or less, not only not going to lose, they thought they were going to win by 30.
Yeah.
It was so dismissive.
Yeah. And what I was going to say too is, now I forgot what I was going to say, but it was the Minnesota game. They used that. And here's the problem with that. Sam Darnold stunk in that game and he was horrible in the red zone. It wasn't about the defense. It was about Sam Darnold stunk. I'm like, well, this guy is much better than Sam Darnold and he can do this better than Sam Darnold. So they'll be okay. Now, as far as the second Eagles game, it's funny because if you dare put out stats on social media and the opposing fan base doesn't like it, man, do they come at it. And one guy's like, well, I'd love to see what, Jaden Daniels does with all these, 4 different coordinators and 3, whatever. They're like, well, I think people here would like to see what Jaden Daniels does behind the game's best line with the game's with an MVP candidate at running back, 2 really, really good receivers and an elite defense. I think he would like that too. But in that the other thing in the second game, you're right. You hear the excuses. Well, and right, Hurts makes a difference. That changes the game. Doesn't mean they win, but they still had to stop Barkley. That franchise also won a Super Bowl with the backup quarterback, but also they scored 36. They couldn't stop Jaden Daniels. And that to me was the big takeaway from that game. So can they, they have to be really, really concerned about facing him. And then the other part too is what's Quinyon Mitchell's status for this game? Because he left with a shoulder injury. He's saying he's okay. But we'll see. That's going to be a big thing to watch too, Bram. So
yeah, I haven't heard. I was talking to a colleague of mine in Philadelphia, and he just kind of told me not on the air, but he said the news, at least what we're hearing, is it's pretty good on him. So we'll wait to see, obviously, on him as well what the situation is. But he's another one. He's a big one. He's a big part of what they've done. He's had a terrific rookie season. Listen, I'm confident in this team because they got it. I don't know what it is, but they got it. I'm fully aware they could lose. Like, this is a really, really good team that they're playing on their home field. Like, I take nothing for granted here, but every time I hear anything like dismissive coming towards them, it just like, I sit there and I go, I think the secret's out, but maybe it's not, because I don't know how you could watch what's going on here and not come to the conclusion that this is an extraordinarily dangerous team.
Yes. Now, the one thing that certainly got Philly's attention was losing that game here. Like, there is no doubt. And as Janet pointed out, she had the numbers. And I remember going 16 carries, 27 yards in the second half for Barkley, and going back and watching, because when I went back and watched, like, let's look at the first half, let's look at the second half. And they absolutely played the better job with gap discipline. The ends getting upfield better, forcing it back inside. The linebackers at time moving a little bit before the snap and creating tougher angles and putting them in better position to help. So there are good reasons for that, but they did it. And you can't just say, well, it was Jalen Hurts' fault because he wasn't there. Well, he wasn't there in the first half when the guy ran down the sidelines either, I think. So like I don't think he was in the game at that point. So like there are things that they did well when Kenny Pickett was in there, and Kenny Pickett didn't play a bad game.
Can I give you my one little history, weird numerology thing that I like? That's like been ringing in my head. So Jaden Daniels, if he wins, obviously be the first rookie quarterback modern NFL to play in a Super Bowl. It could be the first rookie quarterback to win a Super Bowl. Rookie quarterbacks have won championships before. This guy did. Sammy Baugh. He did it in 1937 as a rookie for the Washington
I did not
Redskins.
cover him.
In fact, that was the first year. Yeah, that was the first year. Hold on, please. So that was the first
cover him. Just so people know, I didn't cover him.
Yeah, that was the first year that Washington moved from Boston. The Redskins moved from Boston. That was the first year. He was a draft pick. They won the championship. He did so as a rookie. As you know, John, it has been 33 years since Washington played in the NFC Championship or in the Super Bowl. And it's just so odd that Sammy Baugh, as a rookie who won the championship, with a rookie quarterback that's changing everything for us, wore the number 33. So I'm feeling a little mystical these days about what's going on around here.
So if you have $33, put it on this team, right?
33. Well, I'm not allowed to talk about betting whatsoever. So that's all for you to discuss. No. I adhere to all NFL gambling guidelines, and I have no say in anything that has to do with any wagering whatsoever. But I will say, in terms of mystical numerology, I'm feeling very Da Vinci Code over here and feeling very enlightened about what's happening on Sunday.
Last thing here too, then, well, the other thing would be kind of cool is that if they actually won by scoring 33 points. Then I wish at that point you would get a little bit excited in the booth instead of
you want to hear the ultimate, and it's not going to happen because it's the Eagles. But the last time they shut anybody out was Philadelphia in 1991. So if that happened, now we're talking about the ghosts are literally here lifting this team up and taking them to a championship.
Well, I would say it'd be fun to go back down to New Orleans. I enjoy that city, and this is a story that this year has been so special for this organization, this fan base, for anybody involved. Again, I'm a reporter, but you're in there. We know, I know these, these guys. I know you talk to them all the time, the coaches, whatever. So you know them very well, and they're an easy group to like. And so it's whatever you say, I wish my team was like this. This is what you want. The guys in there, and I brought this up too. One of the things to me, you're around two of the top dogs, so to speak, in this, in on either side of the ball. Bobby Wagner's the guy on defense. He's a normal guy, really normal. And, he knows he's good. He doesn't have to broadcast. He doesn't walk around on airs. He'll talk to you whenever you want to talk to him. And then you have the other guy, Jaden Daniels, who could come in here and be like, it's my team. I'm the hope here. Those two get along very well. They bicker like big brother, little brother. But I think the way their approach is, and it's not about ego. It's everybody's got an ego. Jaden Daniels knows how good he is. He doesn't have to tell you though. And I think just the self-esteem of these guys really sets a tone in that locker room. But it's this is a group that is really easy to be around as a reporter. And it's just, so it's like, it's a really, really good story. And I think it's been fun that it's gone this long. And I'm not going to say it's done. So it's been a lot of fun, Bram. And it's just, and I think for fans to know that this is a really easy team that you can root for. And after all the crap you've been through, like this is God's gift to this fan base.
Yeah, they play with poise, they play with execution, they're very prepared, they're very connected, they're very transparent, they're very communicative, and they got a lot of real competitors in there. It's easy to love what you got. And it's truly been, ride of my professional life for sure. And I hope it's not over on Sunday. I hope we get to do this, 2 weeks from Sunday against whoever they play, because I think it would be remarkable. And we are literally witnessing one of the most unique seasons in NFL history across the board. Absolutely. It is the greatest turnaround in NFL history. It is redefining what a rookie quarterback can be, moving forward. It's redefining the timeline to build a team, to reboot a team. It's truly remarkable in so many ways. And honestly, it's not just number 5. This coaching staff, the front office, the ownership, the people in the locker room, the veteran leadership, and the fans coming back too is a big part of this whole thing. That the red carpet was rolled out. Please come back. They did en masse. I was kind of hoping, I didn't care who they played, but I was kind of hoping for the Rams because I knew our fan base would take over that stadium. I just knew it. And so I was hoping we might get this. I was going to feel like a home game out there. It was going to be 50-50 at best, would have been Commanders fans. In the end, it's incredible. And I'm I don't want to write a eulogy to it. I don't think it's over yet. So I can't wait to see what happens on Sunday.
Well, and you must not like the rest of the media staff if you want to go out to LA. I will say this you're right. It would have been 50-50 out there, right? And that would have been great for the fan base. But I'll be honest, man, I'm tired. And after the last couple weeks, so here's what happens after those games. While you're sitting in there, first class with the team playing, you got your own little cubby to sleep in or whatever it is, whatever you guys do up there. I'm going in Detroit. Game is at 8. I get to my hotel room at 4:30. I shower and go to the airport. So in Tampa, I went to the hotel, slept for an hour and a half, went to the airport. I'm okay with them playing in Philly. So from just that logistical standpoint, I'm okay with that. I will say it would have been fun to go out to LA because I do like it. And you're right. It would have been a really, really strong Washington contingent. But, I would say this, if you're a Washington fan, would there be anything better than having them win in Philadelphia?
Oh, I mean, it's the biggest game in the rivalry's history.
Yes.
They've only played them once in the playoffs ever. So, and I went to that game as a kid when I was in high school. I actually went as a fan and went up there and saw them win that game. I'm really excited for this. This is a unique opportunity. I thought when the second meeting was coming around, remember, we all kind of thought, hey, they'll be the 2 seed, we'll be the 7. We're going to play them in the playoffs. It felt like that was going to happen. But here we go with a lot more on the line. It's going to be incredible to be a part of it.
And I think the official name of this game is Dallas Cowboys' worst nightmare.
I was talking, my friends in Philly were we do think this is round 1 of many over the next few years. And it's hard to disagree with that. It really is. Yeah.
Listen, I mean, again, there's nobody in the NFC who would not take number 5 for the next 5 years, period.
Yep.
They're just not. So, Bram, we're going to end it right there. We got so much more to go on this week. A lot. I mean, shoot, it's only Tuesday, and it's going to be a fun week talking about this. Like I said, I'll be talking to Ross Tucker tomorrow, Lewis Riddick tomorrow. I got my 5 things I think for Saturday. So much stuff, a lot of good stuff coming your way, and appreciate you tuning in as always. And this has been a fun ride. I'm glad it's January 21st, and we're still talking about football games that matter. How about that? Bram, thanks for joining me as always, and thank everybody for tuning in. I will talk to you next time.